I rag on CNN a lot, and it may just be one network, but I do make many videos dragging CNN, notably their media correspondents, often Don Lemon. And at the same time, I'm very critical of them for just ragging on Fox News. On the surface, it may seem like I'm being a bit hypocritical. And you know what? If you want to argue that, by all means do so. I am absolutely open to being criticized. But I think this story here from Newsbusters is the perfect example of the point I'm trying to make with why CNN is so awful. Now, I've been saying for a while that CNN is performative rage bait garbage, they're reality TV trash. There's a big difference between what Fox News does, having conservative opinion, supporting the president very often, and what CNN does. And this story, Don Lemon is basically trying to get a governor to block Elon Musk's Tesla from moving to the state. Now, why would an anchor reporting the news and asking questions pressure a Democratic governor to take action against someone for no other reason than it's a tribal issue? I can't quite understand, to be honest, other than they're trying to signal to their base. CNN is not news. If you want to argue that Fox News is biased and supports the president, do so. It's fine. They often do. They're often biased. They sometimes run really dumb segments, say on like Fox and Friends or whatever, but that's okay. That's just opinion, right? If Tucker Carlson wants to talk about Russiagate, if Hannity wants to talk about Obamagate, okay, they're talking about news issues and they're giving their opinion. But why would Don Lemon actually falsely, nonetheless, try to get a Democratic governor to block Tesla? See, Elon Musk was going to, he announced he wanted to move his company, right? And many of you may have seen this story. He was upset that Alameda County was blocking him. Gavin Newsom of California allowed manufacturing to resume. We actually have the quote here. This is from May 11th. They straight up say that, quote, manufacturing broadly throughout the state of California is no longer restricted with modifications. It was Alameda County that was specifically blocking Elon Musk. Musk took issue with this because Governor Gavin Newsom was on board with manufacturing being restarted. CNN's Don Lemon lies, makes it seem like Elon Musk was defying Newsom and that this Democratic governor in, I believe, Colorado, by supporting and encouraging Tesla to move his factory, was somehow also going against Gavin Newsom. This is activism. This is political partisanship for no other reason that Trump supports the economy being reopened. Therefore, if Elon Musk wants to reopen his factory, it must be awful. This is the problem with CNN. When Oliver Darcy or Brian Stelter complain about Fox News, and boy, do they. That's one network. You're not talking about media integrity. You're complaining about one network's opinion. They also drag One America News. Fine. You want to criticize their opinions? Okay. But isn't it weird how obsessed they are with everything must be anti-Trump? Everything. When I criticize CNN, it's for things like this. This is the perfect example of them lobbying politicians. Yeah, okay. Fox News isn't doing that. Fox News is just biased. CNN is actively lobbying and playing a role in politics. That's why they're so awful. Let's read the story. Newsbusters says, Lemon scolds Polis for inviting Musk to relocate to Colorado. Earlier this week, Colorado Governor Jared Polis had a message for Tesla founder Elon Musk, who threatened to move his company's headquarters out of California after local health officials prevented him from reopening his factory. Talking to Twitter, Polis told Musk, we want you here. This did not sit well with CNN Tonight Don Lemon, who scolded Polis on Wednesday night for rolling out the welcome mat for the defiant Musk. Lemon admonished the liberal Democrat for inviting Musk to relocate his factory to Colorado. After he announced that he would defy orders to reopen the Tesla plant in California, Lemon asked, do you want him in Colorado if he's defying public health guidance in California? Apparently the answer was yes, Don. Polis didn't back down, explaining that we would be very excited if Tesla would locate in Colorado, describing his state as a great place to grow a business and a great place for manufacturing. The Democrat worked to ensure Lemon that his desire to see Tesla relocate to his state was for the long run, because this is likely a transition that could be a year or 2 years. Lemon was not impressed. Quote, why would you want someone who is defying orders to? I understand the business part of it, but I mean, come on, Governor. He continued to chastise Polis. You're a governor. You're not making a fellow governor, Gavin Newsom's, job any easier. Imagine if it was the reverse. If Governor Newsom had done the same thing you were doing. You'd be like, hey, Governor Newsom, what are you doing? Come on, man. What are you talking about? If Elon Musk wants to leave, it has nothing to do with Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom already opened manufacturing. CNN is just stuffing time lying, but they're lobbying a politician to block a company for no legitimate reason. That's my problem with CNN. He said, prior to scolding Paulus for inviting Musk to Colorado, the conversation focused on Paulus's visit to the White House and a restaurant in Castle Rock, Colorado, reopening its dining room in defiance of an order issued by the governor. The CNN hack, I appreciate that, Newsbusters, but, come on, tried to bait Paulus into trashing President Trump. You were in the room when the president took a swipe at Dr. Fauci. What went through your mind when you heard that? Paulus acknowledged that he wasn't sure exactly what he was talking about with Fauci. The conversation about the restaurant reopening featured the usual liberal talking points, with Lemon calling the disobedience nuts and Paulus slamming the foolish behavior of people at the restaurant, contrasting them with the vast majority of Americans who care deeply about their own lives, the lives of their family members, and the lives of their neighbors. In the age of coronavirus, CNN has found a new purpose: defend lockdowns at all cost and impugn the motives of those who refuse to abide by them. A transcript of the relevant portion of Wednesday's CNN Tonight is below. Click expand, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to read that. But that's the point. The resistance people, CNN, Don Lemon, Brian Stelter, Oliver Darcy, they don't actually care about any of this because there's no real principle behind just being mad about one biased network. I rag on CNN specifically for their political lobbying. I should say one of the reasons I do. And you know what? I'm not happy about it either. I've talked about this moral and ethical issue quite a bit. We talked about it last night on the podcast. Are we just playing the same game? By me saying, oh, CNN's awful, am I playing the same game? It's like a never-ending, dominoes falling over. It's the toilet bowl. We're all swirling around. But what are we supposed to do? I honestly don't know. I'll tell you this. I do not believe CNN's criticism of Trump, Musk, of the lockdowns, of Fox News are legitimate, and that's the problem. I believe my grievances with them are legitimate. And maybe that's, you'll end up with resistance people saying, everybody thinks they're right. They think their grievances are legitimate. I just don't see it. Listen, man. Don Lemon is wrong. He's falsely framing the argument. As I have already shown you, this is from ABC7. Elon Musk's dispute was with Alameda County, of which he won that dispute. And Gavin Newsom's spokespeople straight up said manufacturing broadly throughout California is not restricted without modification. That was the issue. So why then drag a governor and make it seem like Gavin Newsom is having his job made harder? It's just not the case. Check this out. Video highlighting CNN host Brian Stelter's obsession with Russia investigation goes viral. This is exactly the issue. Do you know who Jennifer Rubin is? I feel bad for Dave Rubin because he shares a last name with her. Jennifer Rubin is I'm doing air quotes here, conservative columnist. But it just so happens that, I am thoroughly impressed at the stupidity of these resistance people. That you can lie to their faces, and so long as it satisfies their emotions, they just roll with it. That's another problem I have. In this culture war, there is a very big gap between both sides having to do with emotion and logic. You look at the people who like Ben Shapiro. Facts don't care about your feelings, logic, blah, blah, blah. Of course, people on the right can get very emotional. Everybody can. The left seems to be guided by it. I should say the broader left. And so what that ends up happening is you get Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter for years goes, Russia, 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 bah, bah. And then he comes out and says, why are all these right-wing media outlets so concerned about Michael Flynn? They care more about this than COVID. It's like, bro, you for years were talking nonstop about Russia. This is the issue I take with these people. This is why my content tends to be biased in one direction. Because I don't think there's a legitimate grievance for the most part. There's a tendency. Think about all of these things that have happened over the past several years. Russiagate was fake news. Ukrainegate was fake news. The impeachment failed. Jesse Smollett, Covington. I bring this up as examples of the tendency of the cultural left to just be wrong, and they don't stop. You take a look at what happened with the Me Too movement and Joe Biden. And what do you get? The Jennifer Rubin woman I brought up, perfect example. When she will tweet, I believe, Brett Kavanaugh is a bad person. I'm being hyperbolic, mind you. And then she'll tweet about Tara Reade and Joe Biden. that this allegation is wrong. Tara Reade, it's purely emotional reactive confirmation bias tribalism. This is as grifting as they come. And it's sad. It's sad because there are people who are just not smart enough to see through this. You get what Brian Stelter does. And boy, did he devolve into a despicable, absolute. It's crazy because I used to say he wasn't that bad. The same was true for Oliver Darcy. They're both the media correspondents. Darcy interviewed me in 2016 about the threat of internet censorship. He used to be a conservative writer. He was working for Business Insider. Now all he does is rag on Fox News all day. It's like, bro, expand your repertoire, man. It's like you're a one-hit wonder. But it's weird. Why are you obsessed with this one thing? What we see from Don Lemon is that CNN's goal is to just be, well, actually, Brian Stelter said this, to channel the rage of the public, he says. What does that mean? It means the content you get from them is pandering to the audience. Dare I say, siding with the audience. If you're familiar with my story, I've told it quite a bit. When I worked for Fusion, which was an ABC News Univision joint venture, I was told to side with the audience. And that's exactly what CNN has learned to do. They have found their market and they will just side with them. That means they won't tell you. They won't inform you. They're not going to give you legitimate information. They're going to give you hyper-partisan, rage bait, fake news. That's the worst part of it. It's fake. Don Lemon, when he brought up Gavin Newsom, was lying. Or I should say falsely framing or misleading his audience. There is no dispute with Elon Musk and Newsom as far as we can see in the story because Elon Musk waited for Newsom to reopen manufacturing. Alameda County was the dispute. So why would then Don Lemon ask Paulus, oh, you're going to make it harder for Gavin Newsom. What if he did that to you? Well, Gavin Newsom agrees. Everybody would want Tesla to move his factory. That's 10,000 jobs. It's going to bolster the economy. People are going to love the politicians for pulling that off. Let's read the story from Fox News. They say a video montage posted by the Washington Free Beacon highlighting CNN media critic Brian Stelter's change of heart regarding whether or not the Russia probe is newsworthy has gone viral. Free Beacon reporter David Rutz noticed Stelter said Sunday that he was disappointed in right-wing media's obsession with recent revelations about the Russia probe and its origins, calling it insignificant in the light of the coronavirus pandemic. Rutz wrote that Stelter's Sunday morning show was focused heavily on the drip, drip, drip of Robert Mueller's Russia investigation for years, even though it ultimately found no evidence of a conspiracy between Trump and the Kremlin. To illustrate the apparent hypocrisy, the Free Beacon published a supercut of Stelter's recent comments, followed by scores of instances over the years he discussed the investigation himself. The montage quickly went viral, racking up 1.4 million views since it was published on Tuesday night. The big issue I see with what Brian Stelter did is that right-wing media isn't only obsessed with the Flynn story. What Stelter said was like, why are they talking about Michael Flynn when they could be talking about COVID? It was because Donald Trump did an interview where he talked quite a bit about Michael Flynn. But Donald Trump also talked about COVID. And right-wing media also talked a lot about COVID. Brian Stelter was acting like right-wing media was just not talking about it at all. Simply because they did have some conversations about Flynn and they had other conversations about COVID doesn't mean that they weren't talking about it. That's what Brian Stelter's trying to make the claim. He's like, I can't believe they would talk about Michael Flynn. People are dying every day. And it's like, you can talk about two things. That's the lie. They're lying. Brian is lying. He used to be a news guy. Isn't that crazy? He used to be a media critic. Now he's just fake news reality TV. They say as of Wednesday morning, the conservative paper's video was retweeted thousands of times and picked up a ton of engagement with much of the feedback mocking Stelter. One person saying, the fact that he can make these absolutely hypocritical comments and get away with them says a lot about the network that employs him and its viewers. Another person said, what? This man is a non-thinking, irrational, TDS, overwhelmed. Okay, I don't need those comments. I would like, even among the criticism Fox News is throwing back at Stelter, I'd like to keep it to actual arguments. Caleb Pohl says, there's no one in media less intelligent than Brian Stelter. I don't like any of that. Okay, look, if you want to make an argument, you want to argue against somebody, then you should be doing it. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of what CNN does. I don't like it if people do it back. And that's where I try to navigate this in terms of ethics, morality, and I try to break down that understanding, the question of which side is actually in the right. That's why I highlight the several times the left has been absolutely wrong, because there is a tendency among the cultural left to react emotionally and get things wrong. Take a look at the Arbery case. New information is now coming out about that related to text messages that were sent to the two men I don't want to get into the full details of Arbery. I'm going to leave it out, but there's new information coming out. The police had texted the homeowner. The homeowner is now lying about whether or not anything was stolen from his property. He said it was, and he said it wasn't. The story is complicated. It's confusing. Political interests, mob mentality, threats of violence. And so what we need is a calm, sane, and rational approach to understanding what's happening. Now, I'm also I'll throw some shade at the conservatives over this one because they just jumped on board with the emotional, reactive nonsense commentary. And that's not good either. Fox News has its problems with, hyperbolic content. This is why, I like Tucker Carlson, but I'm not a big fan of Laura Ingraham or Hannity because I view them as very bombastic, hyper-partisan personalities. Tucker Carlson is kind of moderate, and he calls it where it's fair, in my opinion. And he has on guests that counter, and he has actual debates. Brian Stelter is the opposite of that. While Tucker Carlson will have on Antifa, will invite the left, and they'll have silly arguments and debates. And yes, sometimes Tucker has bad guests. He tries. I can respect that. Brian Stelter, on the other hand, only has the same echo chamber fake news people coming on saying the same fake news echo chamber garbage. Why is it? And why doesn't anyone notice that there's something strange about just ragging on Fox News all day? Oh, they can argue, but Fox News gets the highest ratings. And look, man, I've got criticisms with the media in general because ABC News has been wrong. They've published fake news in the past few years. You've got CBS and being called out for fake news, using fake images. They did this thing where I believe it was CBS. They did they used a scene from Italy to claim it was the U.S. These are things you can call out, and they occur all across the entire media spectrum. There's a serious problem with ethics in media. Yeah, heard that one before. But with Fox News, it's just one outlet. So the issues I take with CNN are not the same as how CNN goes after Fox News. And that's the point I'm trying to make. But you know what? I tell you, man, it's tough because it really does seem like we're all doing the same thing. And it's hard to know where that line is. I don't know what their argument is. Fox News doesn't fall in line with them. I don't know. It really does just feel like the ultimate goal of what CNN is. No matter what the president says, no matter what his supporters say, they just say the opposite. Their ratings are in the gutter, so they're leaning into it. They're trying to rally an activist base. They're engaging in partisan politicking and lobbying. A news anchor should not tell a governor that they shouldn't allow a company to move. Why would that be okay? I really, really don't get it. But everything's exaggerated. Everything's a lie. And this is what you can get from social media. And as we move into I say 2020, but the 2020 election in November, it's going to get really, really bad. Take a look at this story from Common Dreams. There will be more death, Trump says. Trump says he is willing to sacrifice lives to reopen U.S. businesses. He absolutely does not want you to view these deaths for what they are, blah, 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 blah. If you go to something like r/politics on Reddit, you see stuff like this. Media framing, politicking, I can't stand it. Andrew Cuomo recently came out and said that there will be lives lost. There's nothing they can do about it. And it's true. Donald Trump said the same thing. But look at how the media frames it. With Donald Trump, it says he's willing to accept, he's willing to risk lives, sacrifice lives for business. No one's saying that about Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo's press briefings are put on TV every day. Trump's aren't. How are we supposed to understand anything if this is what we get? Let me wrap it up with one final thought on this. The issue is that policy debates have nothing to do with what matters anymore. Nancy Pelosi is not proposing bills because she thinks it will help the American people. This is where I believe we are facing a complete, total societal collapse. When politicians are no longer acting in the best interest of the people, they're simply acting in a way that they think will result in them getting power. Everything breaks down. Nancy Pelosi's $3 trillion stimulus package has nothing to do with making American lives better. It has everything to do with pandering to the left to getting brownie points. That way she can get reelected and keep her job. You can't solve that problem. I don't see how you do it. If all of our politicians are just interested in saying whatever they have to say to get elected, then laws are being passed that make no sense. Money is being given away. It makes no sense. People will get locked up on issues where it makes no sense, and we will just enter a truly broken and fractured reality where nothing makes sense. And it starts with the media, I suppose, but I don't know. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I'll see you all then.